This is a story about the time I got a job working in the woods. We were standing in the sun next to the fuel pumps that were halfway between the stacks of newly cut logs and the new sawmill, talking in puffs of frozen air. "Have you ever worked in the logging business before?" Mr. Tate asked me. "No," I said, "but I'm a fast learner and have quite a bit of mechanical experience." I showed him a picture of the house I had just built for myself, telling him that I was versatile in other areas as well, and wasn't the type of person who didn't show up for work on Mondays. "Well," he said, as he finished filling a barrel of diesel oil that was in the back of his Ford pickup, "I may have something for you in about 3 weeks. Maybe on the landing or driving truck. Check with me April 15th. Well, as I drove back down the dirt road to the highway, I had the feeling that I would be working in the woods come April. All that winter I had been reading books on forestry and thinking about how I would like to have a job in the mountains, soaking up the fresh air, walking among the firs, and doing some good, hard labor. "I'll do anything," I had thought to myself. Early in March, I was narrowly rejected by the U.S. Forest Service for a job as a mounted patrolman in the Wheeler Peak Wilderness area, mainly because it was felt that I didn't have enough experience in forest-related work. So I had high hopes that by working with a logger for an entire season, I would be able to come back to the Forest Service the following spring and get a job. So as I turned down the highway heading for Costilla, I hoped that Mr. Tate would let me drive a logging truck, something I had always wanted to do and which would fit in well with my overall desire to work in the woods. Sure enough, when I went back on the 15th, I got the job. It was to be as truck driver, and I would start the following day. I woke up at 5:30 a.m. the next morning, dressed, ate, made lunch, and drove over to Mr. Tate's house where all of the logging trucks were parked. He introduced me to Dave, who I learned would drive me into the mountains in my truck, now empty, showing me how the gears and brakes worked. I was to watch carefully because I would be the one driving the loaded truck the 20 miles back to the mill. This made me a little uneasy since I hadn't expected to drive a loaded truck so soon, especially a logging truck. But I watched as Dave unlocked the air brakes and shifted into gear. The rig had 20 forward speeds and a 160 horsepower diesel engine. She was old, a little banged up, tires a little thin, but Dave said she was in good shape. For the next 20 miles, we bounced along the road leading up the canyon, Dave showing me where the engine brake switch was, how to shift into any of the gears, and when to apply the air brakes. At the headwaters of Comanche Creek, the cloud of dust which had been following us like a parachute poured into the cab of the truck as we made an abrupt right turn up the steep, twisting cut, half path, half road that a bulldozer had recently made in the hillside. Dave called this part of the road the chute because it was the steepest part of the trip between the mill and the landing and had to be taken real slowly when coming back down. Again, I felt uneasy. In a few minutes, we were at the landing, though, a cleared area gouged out of the side of the mountain where the logs were waiting to be loaded on the trucks. About after 45 minutes, my truck was loaded with logs, supposedly a light load. "Under 45,000 pounds," Mr. Tate told me as he gave final instructions on driving. Mr. Tate had obviously believed me when I had told him 3 weeks previously that I learned fast. Only now I wasn't so sure I could live up to my statement, but too late. I was on my way. First, second, then third gears. I shifted the truck until I was moving about 2 or 3 miles per hour. I made the first curve a right, getting into the rut so my tires were in the road, and hoping I wouldn't go over the side of the embankment. It was only 2.5 miles back down to Comanche, but I was taking it slowly, giving myself plenty of time to get used to shifting, steering, and looking at both side view mirrors, all in a rapid, coordinated movement of hands, eyes, and feet. I found that first gear, though, was too low for the downhill grade I was on. The truck would barely move. Even with the addition of the truck's empty weight of 20,000 pounds, to my load of logs, the truck would not go faster than a crawling baby. Yet, I was now feeling more confident, so I quickened the pace just a little. This isn't so bad, I told myself as the truck rounded a corner into another downhill stretch. I shifted into second, thinking almost immediately that I was being too conservative and should have shifted up into third. Little did I realize that my confidence was getting the better of me. The truck topped a small rise and then dipped sharply down, almost instantly picking up speed. I stepped on the brakes, slowing the truck momentarily. But then it started gaining speed, and I pumped the brakes more. Still it was gaining speed. I applied the engine brake, which converts engine compression into braking force, but it didn't do any good. I applied the emergency brake. Nothing. Jesus, I thought, why doesn't this thing slow down? Halfway praying that words would do the trick. Then I noticed I was in the chute and that it was too late now to shift into first gear without the truck speeding up immediately when I pushed the clutch in. I was sitting on a 30-ton monster that was aimed for the creek below. Jesus, I said again. I propped the door open with my left knee in case I had to jump, grabbed the steering wheel firmly, and prepared to make the sharp left turn the logging road made just before the creek. Within seconds I was there, pulling hard on the steering wheel. The truck, stacked 15 feet high with logs, which were 70 feet long, shouldn't have made the turn. But it did. That's all I can say. It did. I rolled to a stop, with brakes smoking profusely and dust billowing over the truck like an umbrella. I had been initiated into working in the woods, the life of a logging truck driver. I wasn't sure if I liked it, but at least I was alive.